Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to Finding Plurality, Finding Niche with Dan Plehal, William & Mary class of 2009. We're very excited to have Dan here. Dan is an actor, a director, and an acrobat, among other things. He's based in Chicago, currently plays Sven the Reindeer on the Broadway national tour of Disney's Frozen. He's been an actor, director, and movement director for productions at Steppenwolf, the Chicago Shakespeare Theater, and many others. And he founded Aura Curie Atlas Physical Theater with William Mary alum and Professor Joan Gavaller, who may be among our audience today, and served as co-artistic director for 9 years. Dan studied theater while here at William & Mary, and then physical theater at the Accademia dell'Arte in Arezzo, Italy. I hope I didn't butcher any of the words there, Dan.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dan, for being with us today. I'm going to turn things over to you and this presentation.
Great. Thanks, Adam. Hi, everyone. Thanks for popping into this session. This is the first time I'm giving a talk on this specific topic, and I'm excited. It was exciting to sort of explore what I wanted to say, and I'm excited to share it with you. I have a little PowerPoint presentation, and I'll ramble for a little while, but stop me at any point if you have questions. You can have camera on or off, totally up to you. Apologies ahead of time if suddenly there's a really loud beeping noise. I'm in a hotel because I'm on tour right now, and they have been testing the fire alarms this morning, which is really convenient. So a couple times there's been a loud beeping. Hopefully they got it fixed and there won't be any of that, but that's that. All right, so my handy dandy slides. I'll go to the next one, which is, oops, I'm already screwing up. Yes. We're doing great. All right, so Adam gave an introduction to me, but just a summary of what he said. I am a graduate from 2009. I studied theater and psychology. I live in Chicago now doing acting, directing, and various other theater things. Like he mentioned, I co-founded Aura Curie Atlas Physical Theater with Joan Gavaller, who is here, and I was the co-artistic director with her for almost a decade. Now she has taken over the company and is doing wonderful new things with it, while I am on tour with Frozen. So this is a picture of me with my reindeer puppet that I get to bring to life on stage 4 times a week. It's pretty great. So that's me, but I want to know who you are. I'm particularly interested in how you might write your Zoom name. So if you can go into Zoom and change your Zoom name. If you're on your computer, you can click the 3 dots and hit rename. If you're on your phone, I think you have to go into the list of participants and edit your name. You can throw your pronouns in if you'd like, and put your main thing. So I've written actor. That is how I am employed right now. That is my main thing right now. What is your big main thing, whether that's an artistic discipline or professional goal or something like that? Just go ahead and put that in because I'm curious. No pressure if you have multiple, or just pick one, whatever feels like your main thing right now. Film composer, awesome. Music library, cool. What does it say? Joan, I see creator. What does it say after creator?
Teacher.
Oh, great. Cool. Thank you. Awesome. Cool. All right. So we've got people from a variety of disciplines. Love that. All right. So the title of this talk is Finding Plurality and Finding Niche, which is a little weird, and it is something that's been on my mind lately, and something I've been talking about with my partner who teaches workshops as well, some things that come up in his sessions. And so I just wanted to sort of explore some ideas and talk them through with you. So I think that a lot of people or programs sometimes drill into you that in order to be competitive, particularly in an artistic industry, you have to specialize, you have to be an expert, and you have to follow the defined path for that specific art form. And yes, there's truth to that. There's value to that. Absolutely. But I'm guessing that everyone here realizes or hopes that that's not the case. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be taking this workshop. To me, even if you know that being plural or having a weirdo niche is a viable way to approach an artistic career, I think it's really important to hear that, to sort of be reassured that it's true. Something that I sort of wish I was reassured of when I was a bit younger. So I'm here to do that for you. It is a viable way to go through an artistic career and take that approach. So what does being plural mean? I pretty much made this PowerPoint simply so that I could use this image. This is an image from a book called Caps for Sale, which was a book I loved as a kid. And I'm going to often refer to this metaphor. Yes, Bridget knows it. Awesome. This metaphor of different hats to wear. We've all heard, like, what hat are you wearing? I'm wearing so many hats right now. We're going to approach that idea of hats being professions or jobs or roles or tasks that you take on. So at least to me, being plural is having a lot of hats that you are comfortable wearing. You might be a composer, but also a sound engineer, but also a lighting designer or a painter and a teacher at the same time. And also you organize events and do technical work. You know, whatever the case may be, there's probably a lot of things that you have dabbled in that you get called on to do, or that you may find on your plate in your future. So you have all these different hats. Some of them fit really well, and some of them don't fit as well, but they might make us money, or we might get asked to wear them a lot. We've also got hats that we wear so much that we get sick of them, even though we loved them originally. And oftentimes we have like that one hat that is our absolute favorite, but it just sits on the shelf and we never get to wear it. Either we're too afraid to wear it, which is a different workshop entirely, or we just never get the chance. So stick with me on this hats metaphor. This image is just from this book where this guy sells a whole bunch of different hats and then monkeys steal them. But I love it and I wanted to use the image. Okay. Being plural is not trying to be good at everything. It's not if you're an actor saying you can do any role in the show and just being ready, being able to do any role or direct any type of film or paint in any style. Yes, flexibility is great, but I think it's tempting a lot to sort of make yourself be a blank slate so that the industry will find a place for you, or that you can take on anything. And a lot of times that becomes a little muddier, or you don't spark out if you aren't really leaning into certain elements. So rather than just being willing to be good at everything, it's important to try all of these things, a lot of things that interest you, to explore broadly. And then lean into the things that really do excite you, spark your potential, and also recognize that a lot of those things are not for you. And then take them off your resume or let them be a thing that you're not advertising. So looking for that plurality, these things that we do, I want you to come back to your Zoom names and I want you to add some more slashes. So I'm going to go from being Dan the actor to Dan the actor, director, puppeteer, acrobat, movement director. I wonder how many letters we can use. Oh, that's it. I can only get that. So add a few. If there are other things that seem like parts of your identity, your sort of list of hats that your top hats to wear. I wonder if I can find the list of participants a bit differently. We got creator, teacher, Alexander technique, performer, producer, performer, creative, creator, filmmaker, music, library, event producer, composer. Yes. Comp sci. Nice. Film composer, writer, director. Awesome. Okay, so we've all got some slashes, and we know what it's like to to wear different hats and have those slashes. I also like that I'm seeing several that are artistic and non-artistic things. I think it's really awesome because we have a character limit on those. We're going to come back to those later. Maybe have a piece of paper handy. I don't know. Spoilers. We'll come back to that. Okay. Thank you for adding some more slashes. All right, let's talk about niche. Oh, I forgot I had a slide for that. Yay, we added more slashes. Okay, niche. What is niche? Niche is an interesting one. I feel like we all kind of know what niche is, but I think we'd all define it differently. So now you get to go into the chat and type your definition of how you would define niche. An unusual specialty, cultivated community centered on a specific interest. Okay, cool. A subcategory of a larger group. Nice. An interest, very, very specific. Okay, cool. Awesome. All of these are right. And I'm going to offer mine, which might be a little bit different. To me, a niche is, oh, shoot. All right. A niche is, at least a professional niche or an artistic niche, is filling a unique place in a market, in an industry, in an art form, by having a specific set of skills. So I think we're all sort of talking around the same idea, and that's the sort of defining idea that I'm going to move forward with. This filling a unique place in your industry, in your market, in your art form, because of the skills you have. You could also look at that as having a hat to wear that no one else has. It might be a similar hat to someone else's, but yours has some really specific feathers or ribbon or something that makes it recognizable and unlike everybody else's. A lot of times in a professional industry, your niche is what you become known for. And I don't necessarily mean that in terms of publicly or fame. I mean how you become known within your industry, what your specialties are within your job title or your combination of job titles and your interests and specialties. To me, having a niche is not doing only one thing or having a really narrow and inflexible approach to your art or your career. It's not like I'm a sculptor, but I only use bubblegum for my sculptures. Like maybe that's a very specific route to go. I don't recommend it because you might necessarily, because we'll talk about that later, but like that hyper specificness in an exclusionary way is not the way I like to approach the idea of niche. But a uniqueness based on other things is sort of how I like to approach that. And we'll get a little bit more into that. Okay, so, but this is confusing because I feel like I'm just defining things that contradict to each other. Where'd my thing go? Plurality. Why? Come on. Sorry. Plurality versus niche. Seems to me like they contradict a little bit. Plurality seems so expansive in lots of things, and niche seems hyper-specific. But I would like to propose to you that plurality creates your niche. The plurality that you embrace, if you cast your net wide, to use a different metaphor that I won't come back to, but that's okay, and reel in the elements that connect most to you, it's going to create a specific constellation of skills, expertise, and passions unique to you. And that's going to define your niche. So that it's not just one hyper-specific thing, but it's a unique combination of things that carve out your spot in the landscape that only you can fill. And you can only have that by being plural, by embracing that plurality. So let's talk about why to be plural. Ups and downs. Life is long. Careers are long, decades and decades. And I'm less than 20 years out of college, and I've already gone through a bunch of waves and changes in my career, in my life, in my brain, and things will always go up and down and have periods of plenty and also dry spells, professionally, artistically. And so if you put all of your energy into a single thing, when that thing isn't working out, and I say when because there will be a time when that one thing, your big thing, isn't working out, that can feel a lot like failure. If you have an upswing and then it drops down, are you suddenly failing? Are you not keeping your momentum going? No, that's just how life works. That's how society works. That's how art works. So instead of having that, if you've got other irons in the fire, if you've got other projects to work on or avenues to explore or jobs you can be hired for, roles you can play, then those dry spells can become, rather than a failure in this category, it's an opportunity in this category for you to wear a hat you haven't put on in a long time, or maybe pick up an old hat and rediscover a joy that was previous that became a burden or that you haven't looked into in a while. So that plurality lets you find that that opportunity in what could be a negative thing. Things change. Your dreams will change. Your life circumstances will change. Your family dynamics or your financial situations change. Also, the industry changes. I define myself really heavily as a director, but at the moment, there's much less of a need for white male directors in our theater industry, and I applaud that. I think that's a great move of our industry to recenter the stories that are being told and the people that are telling them. So I'm quite fine setting that director hat to the side, and it'll probably come back later, but I am glad I have other hats to wear in the meantime. And always be yeah, and then okay, third one, always be learning. This is a huge one. I was thinking about this and I was remembering the day I graduated William and Mary as the day that I had never wanted to learn more in my life. I had such a huge desire to learn. I had been exposed to a whole bunch of things and wanted to learn about them, and suddenly I was graduating and my space of learning was being taken away. And it caught me off guard. I was really surprised at how much I suddenly was longing to learn when I'd been at the school for 4 years and didn't do all the reading that Joan Gavaler assigned me to do. uh, and then I realized gradually that you never have to stop learning, and I never want to. That the whole world has plenty of opportunities and ways for you to learn. And the other thing is that a lot of times we have these peak goals. Like for me, I want to be a Broadway director. I want to win a Tony Award directing on Broadway. You may want to win an Oscar or create this masterpiece further down the line. And that thing, you're going to spend a whole lot more time training for that thing, learning about that thing, working towards that thing, doing smaller projects that help build your way to that thing, then you're actually going to do doing that specific thing. So if you're going to spend all of this time on the learning, on the training, on the progress, you might as well be doing things that you enjoy, the learning steps along the way. I have a few things, goals, dreams that I would love to, like I would love to be able to play the piano. That's always been a thing I wish that I could do. I hate practicing the piano. And I realized that if I'm gonna, I'm like willing to let that dream go because I don't like the learning process for it. Whereas a lot of the other things I'm interested in, I'm also interested in the learning process. And I think that's a much more solid avenue to pursue if you are excited about the learning, the steps along the way that are going to get you to that big goal. And if you don't want to learn it, it might not be the thing for you. What else do I have in my notes? If you're always learning about something early, if you're always learning, you're more likely to avoid boredom. Because learning is sparking your brain and keeping you engaged and active. So if you're just doing a thing that you know how to do well, you're probably going to get bored with it. But if you're learning new and interesting things, keep yourself engaged and not bored. Okay, diversify. This is another analogy that if you know anything about stocks and you know more than me, which is probably easy to do. Please forgive my inaccuracies in this analogy, but hopefully it'll work out. If you are investing in stocks in the stock market, most experts will encourage you to have a diversified portfolio. You certainly can make a bajillion dollars by investing in a single company at the right time, having it boom and then selling and coasting on that money. And that can also happen in an arts career. You can focus on one skill, you can get a lucky break, make one film or whatever, and make a ton of money off that thing and then coast. But it is possible that in that scenario, you never work again, or you have a lot of trouble finding work again. And for an artist, that's not really the point. We are artists by identity, and we want to keep making art, and that need never really goes away. So to build a diversified artistic life, like a diversified stock portfolio, allows you to sustainably make art for a longer time, and as we want to. Okay, one more analogy. I really like metaphors and analogies, so I hope they're not getting too confusing, but this is one of my favorites. This is the ladder versus the rock wall. I used to say when I was starting out professionally that I really would rather climb a ladder than climb a rock wall. I had this dream where I would get hired in a low-level position at a theater company I really liked, and climb my way to the top. I would start by just sweeping the floors and work my way up the ladder and eventually end up as the artistic director of that theater. And that used to be sort of the vibe, the American dream. You know, you get a job in the mailroom and you end up as the CEO, but that's not how the world works anymore. And especially not how the art world works. So instead, it's more like you're climbing a rock wall. There's no defined path, but you can sort of aim yourself in particular directions and look for the footholds along the way. And while you're climbing, to continue this metaphor, sometimes you want to, you have to scramble in a direction you didn't expect, or maybe you see something that interests you over a different way, so you scramble that way a little bit. And along the way, you meet people that are going to affect your journey and help lift you up. You build skills that are going to help you with that one big thing at the top of the mountain, the peak you're going to get to. And so there's a lot more variety and learning and excitement that goes along the way. And sometimes you even end up at a different peak than you expected, because you've changed course, or you just happen to find yourself on another mountain, and that's exciting too. So the rock wall that I used to be mad about, I like the rock wall now. I support climbing the rock wall. Okay, grab a piece of paper or just a note on your computer or whatever. This is more for you. You've all added your slashes, and now you have 3 or 4 or 5 things that are sort of your parts of your identity. Add more. I want to see lots of things. For me, I would add a slash of yoga instructor. I coach story structure. I'm a puppeteer. I'm a abstract painter by hobby. It doesn't have to be things you want to do professionally. I'm a photographer, blah, blah, blah. Add the things. Make a lot of slashes, or just scribble things on your paper, a little spider web of interests and such. While you do that, I'm going to give my dog some water so he stops whining. All right. That's just for you. We may come back to that one more time, but I think it's important to really be open with yourself about all of the things. List a lot of them. Go beyond. Do that thing you took a class in once. Add the pottery and oh man, do people still talk about underwater basket weaving? I feel like that was a common thing every time you were choosing classes at William and Mary. They'd be like, yeah, take underwater basket weaving if you want to. Anyways, if you want to do underwater basket weaving, add that to your list. Okay, how to become plural. Um, it's easy enough to talk about the good things about being plural, but becoming plural, embracing that can be challenging. And my first bullet point here is to say yes, which can often be contradictory to a lot of advice you get to say no to things, to keep yourself in check. This is say yes to yourself. Say yes to your own weird artistic impulses. Say yes to the things that you are drawn to. Take the pottery class or the puppetry workshop. To go back to our hat analogy, if you walk into a hat shop and you see one on a shelf and you're like, wow, that looks cool, and you keep walking, no, like try it on, say that looks cool, and then test it out, take it for a spin, see how it fits, see how you feel in that hat that may be off the beaten path for you. So say yes to yourself. My second point here is to wear multiple hats, and be willing to wear multiple hats at once. That's a little bit of a tricky thing, but comes into play a lot, particularly earlier in a career, when you might not be getting hired to be doing the things you want to be doing. So you have to create work on your own. And as we know, a lot of art takes a village or takes a group to create the product that you want to create. If it's a theater production or a film or whatever, you need other people often, or other skill sets. And it's good to remember that you have multiple. You've all put some slashes. You've all put things on those pieces of paper that you have some interest or some ability in, and that can help you out a lot. When Joan and I founded Aura Curiatlis, our physical theater company, it was just the two of us, and we found two other folks to do it. We booked ourselves a theater and said, in 8 months we're going to have a show. And we didn't really have a ton of money to work with, so we figured out how much we could do on our own. We made some costumes by ourselves. We did the lighting design by ourselves. We did the sound editing by ourselves, in addition to the choreography, the story work, the staging. And there were also times when we hired out for some of those positions and then realized that we didn't need to hire those people because we actually had those skills strong enough in our group. So we wore a lot of hats to do that, but we were able to wear the hats that we were maybe less interested in. I did lighting design for almost all of our shows, which I don't really have much interest in lighting design anymore, but I spent a lot of time training it in college. So I could wear that hat and use it to support the work we were actually passionate in doing. So keep in mind all of these other things that may not be your main thing, and how that can support your bigger dreams, your bigger goals, the bigger things you're working towards. Be interested in other people's hats. I like this one a lot. I'm on tour right now with Frozen, and I sit backstage and I ask the technicians how things work. I ask how the video shows up in that place, or what fabric this is made of, how this moment is constructed. Because the more you have ideas of how other things work, the more you can communicate with those people, with those art forms. Ask them the dumb questions, the things that you think might be a stupid question. Ask them, because sometimes it's actually a really viable one that they've been unpacking, or that it was an interesting challenge that they overcame in making the thing. So be interested in other people's hats. And don't fight it. Don't fight the desire to veer off your course a little bit, to take your pottery class or whatever. When I was in grad school, I had a professor who sat me down for a feedback session at the end of a semester, and his advice was that I was touristing, and to use his word, and he said that I was touristing. In all these different disciplines, I was just like dipping my toe in, taking the picture, saying I was at the Grand Canyon, and moving on. And I wasn't really investing or experiencing them. And that really got in my head for a long time. And I was really mad at this professor too. This was not at William & Mary. But as I've unpacked that later and thought more about it, I was touristing. I was checking out a lot of things. I was trying out a lot of disciplines, a lot of art forms, a lot of things, skills. But I was using that as a way to decide where I did want to invest my energy. And there were things that I really leaned into, particularly even at that grad school. I found my love of acrobatics, and that led me into a whole deep dive in acrobatics, which has got me where I am today. So don't be afraid of touristing, of trying out lots of things, of taking pictures at tourist destinations along the way. And then when one really catches you, lean in and explore it further. So don't fight it. Okay. Wow, it is halfway through the workshop and I finished plural. That's great. Let's talk about niche. Any questions about plurality before we go there, before we move into niche? Can you hear my dog whining? That's a question from you. Great. Let's see, chat's popping up. Oh, you can only a tiniest bit. Okay, great. He's a very tiny dog. So thank you for your willingness to allow his tiny whines to exist. I think he's whining because the sun went behind clouds and he wants me to turn the sunspot back on. Unfortunately, I cannot do that. Okay. Yeah, it is a good reason. Okay, we're gonna move on to niche. As I mentioned before, niche, as the way I like to look at it, is a collection of skills or attributes you have that help define your place in an industry. So I really like the idea of this constellation. If you look at this image of the constellation, imagine that all of the stars, all of the pinpoints on this image are skills of yours, or hats you wear, or pieces of your identity, all specific to you. All of the things that you wrote down on that piece of paper with slashes in between them are the points on this, not just the ones that are connected to each other, but all of the little dots too. And your niche is actually more defined by how people see you than how you see yourself. So when someone thinks of you or looks at your skill set, they may draw a line, they may draw a constellation amongst certain aspects of your plurality and find the image, find the niche where they see you fitting. And that's okay, because you don't have to like put your niche anywhere on a form. So it's often how people see you. It's not necessarily what you need to see in yourself, though it can be. You can see your own constellation as well. So let's lean into niche a little bit. Why is it important? Why is it useful and important to have a niche? Okay, the first one is to stand out, which we've heard a million times. Stand out in the crowd. This will help you stand out in the crowd. And that's so much easier said than done. But it is important. I'm in the theater industry, and if you, as an actor, if you go into an audition and there's several hundred people auditioning and they all are talented and they all think they can play whatever role, your chance of standing out is really slim unless there's something unique, something sort of niche, the constellation of a couple elements that really pop you to the top. So niche helps you find that ability to stand out. And not only just standing out, but popping into people's minds. You'll hear that a lot of the industry is who you know, and it's not just knowing the right people, but it's having people think of you when they are filling their production list for a film, or trying to cast a show or whatever, or just getting interested in an artistic project. If you have a specific constellation, if you have a brand, if you have an idea or a identity that sort of exists in the realm of the industry that is unique, you're more likely to pop into someone's brain when they say, who can do this thing? Or get recommended to somebody else, that sort of thing. Why have a niche? Get recognized. Sorry, one more thing about popping into people's brains. You want to be the person. You don't want to just be a person who might be able to do this thing. You want to be the best person for this thing. When Joan and I were doing selecting people to work with us on some things for our company, we needed a vocal artist who could make all these sound effects. And so we asked around, and this one guy came up in a couple different conversations as the guy who's really great at weirdo sound effects. And he was great. And so he did a concert with us, and that was awesome. But it's because people knew of him as doing these weirdo sound effects that we were the people that needed him. So anyways, you know that you get that. All right. Get recognized. That is about people recognizing your work. All artists, sort of form their style, their impression. I think we've all, you can go see a movie and say, oh yeah, that's definitely Tim Burton's work, or a director, or you can listen to a piece of music and say, yeah, I can absolutely tell who wrote that, or whose voice that is. And the more you define your niche, the more you allow, or rather allow your plurality, allow your specific unique elements to create this niche for you, the more your work will be identified with you, recognized as your work, which then makes you stand out, makes you pop into people's brains. This is one that I really like: inspire and connect. If you are being really truthful about your art, your passions, your the things that interest you, then you're going to inspire other artists. You're going to connect with other artists who are think what you're doing is cool, and hey, I don't know, let's collaborate on something, let's make this thing together. That's sort of self-explanatory. That's sort of it. I don't need to elaborate on that much more, but there's a lot of collaborations and partnerships and things that can come out of linking up of people who are mutually a fan of each other's stuff, and cool shit comes of that. And then bigger payoffs. Niche can be scary because it can feel limiting, right? If you're not like, hey, I could play any role in this production. If you reel it down to, hey, I really want to play this specific role in this production, you feels like you're taking opportunity off the table from yourself. You're going down a path less trodden, but in the end, it can really have bigger payoffs. I had a friend, Tabitha, in Philadelphia. She was an actress and a musician, but she also painted just for fun and free time. And her painting was just kind of for her, and I think she maybe posted them online or whatever. But it wasn't until she made a really specific artistic choice, she started incorporating broken glass, broken bottles into her paintings, like glued them in and painted them into her paintings. And suddenly she sold a whole bunch because she took a couple of her passions. She really liked wine. So when she had wine bottles that she was done with, she broke them and incorporated them into her painting and combined these couple things, and it became this niche type of art that suddenly everybody wanted, and a lot of people started buying her paintings, and that helped support her while she was being a musician and an actress. So that sort of weird combination leads to specificity. Another story about our company. So the company that Jonah and I formed, we called it physical theater, but we learned pretty quickly that in order to get people to understand what the heck it is, we had to refer to it as acrobatic dance theater, which is a little slightly more graspable. And it is a combination of acrobatics, dance, and theater. And when we were putting up our first show, I was terrified. We were putting it up in Chicago, which is my home. I'd invited everybody that I knew from the theater world, from the circus world. I didn't know a ton of people in dance, but I knew that some of them were coming. And I think the thing that I was afraid of is that it wouldn't be circus enough for the circus people. It wouldn't be theater enough for the theater people, or dance enough for the dance people. And when we got these people in the room and we shared this thing that we made, they didn't see it as lacking in their particular industry. They saw it as a unique combination of things that incorporated stuff they had no familiarity with, and something altogether different. And so it really managed to thrive in its uniqueness, not by unique of only being one thing, but being an interesting combination of other things. And that was our first show, and then we did it for 9 years, rolling on that bandwagon, and Joan's keeping it going now. Okay, that's why having a niche. What's next? How do you find your niche? I've sort of already been talking about this, but it's embracing your plurality. It's letting all of the things lead you, and you don't have to define it for yourself, but let it sort of take shape. It's one of those, I think you've seen comics of like winding paths that feels like this, but when you look back, it looks like it was a straight line. It was like, oh yeah, all of that made sense to get me to where I am. But you sort of have to embrace that plurality to let your niche take shape. Dive deep into the things that interest you. Learn everything you can about that automatic fly system or a particular type of camera lens or cinematography or instrument or whatever. If there's something that piques your interest, just lean into it and don't feel like you're wasting time by going in this weirdo direction, because it's going to help you define that for yourself. Again, don't fight it. I had this on the plurality page. It's tempting to, oh, I don't want to just be a blank. If I lean into this, I don't want to just be whatever it is. But it's not just that, because there's more to you. So all of these other things will sort of make their constellation for you. Even if it's not exactly how you see yourself, it's helpful for the world to see you in a certain way, or to let the world sort of draw their own lines of constellation amongst your elements, so that they can start to get to know you, particularly earlier in your career. When I was starting to get to know people in the Chicago theater industry, they just saw me as an acrobat. Like, I did acting, I was a theater guy, but like I had these acrobatic skills. And I didn't want to just be the acrobatic guy in theater. But it helped me get to know people. It got me jobs at Chicago Shakespeare, at Steppenwolf. It got me in the room and talking to people. And once I'm in the room and talking to people, I can let my other skills out. I can let other parts of me shine. So it's sometimes helpful to let people draw their own conclusions about their own constellation for you, and let that open doors for you so that you can then sort of add to it, add the other stars in that you want them to see. And your niche can always evolve. It's going to change as you grow. It's going to change as you fit into different markets or industries or art forms. Last one, I am. This is a favorite story of mine. After college, I moved to Philadelphia for a couple of years. A friend of mine had graduated from William & Mary a year ahead of me. She was leaning into scene design and had gone to have an apprenticeship at a theater in Philly. So when I got there, she had some networks that she introduced me to, some people that she introduced me to. And another friend of ours, so Maura, that's my friend, and she had a friend named Catherine who also did the apprenticeship at the theater. And they'd been in Philly the same length of time. They both moved there right out of college, and had been there for a year. And I was part of conversations. We would go to events and introduce ourselves to people and whatnot. And I remember hearing Maura introduce herself. Hi, my name is Maura. I want to be a scenic designer. And she gradually started to get work here and there. Catherine introduced herself. Hi, I'm Catherine. I am a costume designer. And she got a lot of work. She started like ramping up faster than Maura did. And maybe it's because costume design has more opportunities than scenic design, or there's some patriarchal bullshit that is going to part relating gender and whatever. You can go down any of these rabbit holes. But the way I saw it was that Catherine said, I am, and Maura said, I want to be. And people will respond to that. So all of the things, the slashes you put on your paper, you are those things. You can do those things. Even if you don't have the achievements or the skills of the people that you look to in the industry, that doesn't mean you are less of that thing, or that you can't define yourself as that thing. So I recommend, particularly those of you that are in college, as you move into the world, say, I am a composer. I am whatever. You are those things, and really let that be how you present yourself, and you'll feel it differently too. By the way, Maura did great and eventually did a whole bunch of scenic design and was slaying, and now works in museums and stuff. But that was just the sort of game starting out. And then, okay, So we've got these lots of hats, which are also stars that then become drawn in a constellation. And I guess to sort of wrap up, as you let this plurality emerge, and you let your niche take shape, to me, I feel like that helps define identity. When it really comes down to it, identity is the thing that is the result of all of this, both as an artist and as a human, as a professional, as a person. Your identity is all of these things that come together, and sort of exist in the world. That's the end of my list of notes. So I'm curious if you've have thoughts or questions, or if there are things that this is just sparking in your brain that any of you want to sort of bring up and discuss or ask questions about.